Welcome to another episode of Always Ageless, where we explore how to navigate life's transitions with confidence and dignity. I'm your host, Valerie Van De Zilver, and today we are tackling a critical topic, finding the right senior living solution for yourself or for your aging loved ones. But we are very fortunate today because joining us is Scott Fischer, founder of Options for Senior Living. Scott started his career a long time ago just as a nurse, but he soon saw a greater need, guiding families through the complex world of senior care with honesty, ethics, and empathy. And for over 20 years, probably more than 20 years, he and his team of certified placement experts have helped countless families make informed decisions. And after all, isn't that what we want, is information to make informed decisions rather than crisis-based decisions. So whether it's independent living, it's assisted living, it's memory care, or it's skilled nursing or rehab or nursing home or whatever you call it, Scott didn't stop there. He founded PASRS and then the National Placement and Referral Alliance to set professional standards in an often not regulated and not licensed industry, which we would expect that would be, but it's not. So today, Scott is here to share real life stories, hard-earned wisdom, and expert advice on what every family should know about senior living and how to choose the right place. So whether you're a loved one and you're thinking of needing to make one of these decisions yourself about your own future, or you're the family of a loved one and you want to help them with this decision, this conversation is definitely going to open your eyes, open your heart, and give you the knowledge you need to make the best decisions. So if you're driving, turn up your volume. If you're at home, grab your coffee or your tea, settle in, and let's get started. And welcome, Scott Fischer.
Wow. It's so good to be here. Nice to join you today. Thank you for the invite.
You are so welcome. Scott, I want to take you back to the very beginning, before the awards, the recognition, and the growth of your passion in this industry. What moment in your life made you realize that seniors was really your calling?
That's fascinating because it was more of I became aware that this walking through a door was my future, and I didn't see it that way at the time. For years, I spent working inside psychiatric hospitals, both acute care and residential long-term care facilities. And actually, my focus for 12, 13 of those years was with troubled kids, adolescents, and children who suffered from severe abuse and trauma. A lot of times these kids have been incarcerated, and now they were in long-term psychiatric treatment centers. And one of those in the late 90s I was working at, the kids were with us sometimes 2 years. They'd have 2 birthdays with us, maybe 3. And you would see these kids go from like 13-year-olds to 16-year-olds before they were ever allowed to leave. Had an issue with a young man one day. I was actually walking across the campus on my own, and I saw one of my psych techs that worked for me. He was walking this young man back across the campus, and the school was on one part of the campus, and the living environment and where the nurses and where the kids' sleeping quarters was on the other side. So I thought, just to be safe, I'd walk Ryan over there with this young man, just so that nothing happened. And when we got back to the nurse's station, the young man started to escalate, foul language. He started to be Kung Fu Joe with us and all this. Anyways, after all of our best attempts to de-escalate and use our crisis de-escalation techniques that we used, we end up in a full, what we called a restraint, or the kid had become violent and out of control. And so then we had to put hands on. In doing so, I ripped all the ligaments in my right wrist that day. And I knew I'd gotten hurt. And little did I know that was then, after I got it diagnosed, that my years of working in psych hospitals because of my wrist issue had come to an end. And I really had a tunnel of a number of months where I didn't know what I was going to do, and even had a job at a mattress store and it was sold beds. And I sat in there. Well, nobody was in the store. I had a second job cold calling and selling water treatment systems. And it was months of soul searching. And but I had this nursing license, and I knew I needed to get back in the game. My head was messed up from kind of getting hurt, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time in my own thoughts. I took a job back at a psychiatric hospital for a short time, but it led me to get a job with a home health agency here in Phoenix. And that particular home health agency had the only national psychiatric visiting nurse program that Medicare paid for in the country.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I could go use my skill set, and I didn't have to do it in a crisis clinical setting. I could go out and see people in their homes. Sometimes their homes were in assisted living and senior living and stuff like that. Sometimes they were just at their house, husbands and wife. Most of the people I was seeing, I was asked to see at that time, had some sort of setback with a dementia episode. Their psychiatric symptoms that
Oh,
sometimes comes along with their Alzheimer's, and maybe get their nights and days mixed up. They get some confusion, agitation, that kind of thing. Or sometimes it was people just severely depressed. They lost a spouse, and now situationally they get real bogged down with the heaviness of life. The loneliness is crushing, can be. And so I would see people for anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. All of a sudden, I went from working with these kids to working with people at the other end of the spectrum. And all of a sudden, I loved what I was doing again, because I had stopped loving it. I was
sure.
committed and dedicated, and I got hurt doing it, but I didn't love it anymore. And all of a sudden, I was out of a locked in environment. I'm in the front seat of my car. This is 25 years ago. And all of a sudden, like, the world just opened up. Like, I could just go make a living. And if you are in somebody's living room and they were really struggling, and you see their rosary or their Bible on the table, Valerie, I felt like I could pray with them or ask them if I could pray for them. If they didn't, then you didn't have, you could just be yourself and be in their living room. And all of a sudden it was like, holy smokes, this is a cool environment. And little did I know that sort of simultaneously to this, behind the scene that I wasn't even aware of, there was this industry of placement or referral and placement people that were starting to pop up around various cities in the West, Southern California, Phoenix being one of them, where there was now people starting to help people navigate this now ever changing, complex senior living thing that I didn't know anything about. I was just brand new to it. I was novice. I walked into it, and I didn't know anything
A
about
lot of
working with
people
people yet,
were.
but it was like, wow, I was all of a sudden excited about, and I didn't even know anything about owning my own business yet, right? I was just a clinician on the ground, and you'll hear nurses and clinical people say sometimes working in the office or in this hospital setting, we're so busy we don't get to spend any time with our patients. Well,
Right. Yeah.
now I would see 5 or 6 patients in a day. I would drive around and go to all their homes, and if I was in their home for 30 or 40 minutes or an hour, you felt satisfied because you had a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, wow, I like this.
Yeah.
And
In
it was
some ways,
so
it's
it kind
almost
of
like,
awareness. Yeah.
yeah, it's like ministering to them,
That's how
kind
it
of,
felt
right?
like to me.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And were you always, as a nurse, were you always in the psych hospital realm? That was always your career?
I was the first semester of nursing school. We had to go to our county hospital where they do all this really uh, med surge kinds of wound care and post
Uh-huh.
surgical stuff. And I was like, I'll never get out of nursing school. I can't do all that
Really?
medical stuff. Oh, I had massive anxiety that I was going to kill somebody. I couldn't do these procedures that they were having us do. Oh, I was just overwhelmed. And then the second semester of nursing school, we went and I was introduced to the psychiatric hospital, and I thought, my people, this is me, my people.
How funny. So yeah,
Especially the alcoholics. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my people. And I then, as soon as I finished my rotation, I got a job at that psychiatric hospital as a tech, and finished nursing school for a year while I worked part-time as a tech at the hospital. I knew that was what I was going to do, is I wanted to talk to and work with people. That's what I wanted to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, we have a lot in common. I grew up wanting to be a missionary nurse in Africa.
Mm,
Quite the same thing, but still the giving part.
mm-hmm,
Well,
mm-hmm.
let's just stay for a minute on the business of senior care.
Yeah.
So a lot of people see what you do as placement as just a business, but for
Mm-hmm.
you, it's a mission. What personal experience shaped you that you wanted to approach serving seniors and their families?
Yeah. Initially, I guess to answer your question, it was I started the business of what I'm doing in 2003. So we're just entering year 23. And so at 40 years old, I really felt like compelled, like I needed to own my own business at some point in time. And this was seemed to be because of you mentioned the lack of regulation and oversight. It was a no brainer for me to step into this space because I could do it with no overhead, no big investment, and all of a sudden you're in business.
Right. Yes.
At the same time, I'm 20 years, exactly 20 years younger than my mom, and my mother and father were divorced at that time, and dad had remarried, but mom chose to stay single, and so even though she was in her 60s at that time, her health was always kind of jinky. She's always struggled,
Oh,
and I could foresee that at some point in time, I'm going to be that adult kid, um, flash forward here 20 something years, and mom's in her early 80s and I'm 62, and we're right in the throes of it. Right before we got on the call here, I'm talking to my mom's physician about some of her challenges right now. And so I guess to answer your question, being the oldest of four brothers and knowing that my mom was that at some point in time, I was going to be in this role. And
mm,
so while I was being asked to see people that were my elders at church, because I was part of a church family, and the pastor would tell these families the guys at my church were not coming to church anymore because they were, moving around and things were changing with their health, that
yeah.
I would have to help them, that I just had to invest more of myself and feel responsible for the outcomes when you help somebody. And what I mean by that is not only is my business not regulated, senior living is regulated, but it's very,
Loosey goosey, as
loosey
they say.
goosey. Yeah, you're right. So if you're going to recommend or refer people to certain places, then you better be pretty confident that the outcome is going to be pretty predictable.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I couldn't imagine referring people that I loved and my friends and people I went to church with and loved and admired, and then they go, "Oh, so sorry, I got paid, but so sorry." That just seems so wrong.
Yeah.
And so I guess I was inspired to get it right, have very little poor outcomes, and strive all the time to know the inside and out of the senior living operators that I was choosing to work with, so that I could have a high degree of assurance that my families were going to get that good outcome.
Well, you've certainly built a reputation for honesty and for ethics in an industry that at times it has its challenges.
Hmm.
And I've
Hmm.
heard some of those. So why is that so important to you?
Wow. I'm getting paid um, to help people solve a problem, and I just couldn't stand the idea of of taking the money and run kind of an idea. There are agents all over town, and I can tell stories after story after story that have been paid large referral fees and been pretty deceptive about their business practice. And as I was launching my business back in the early 2000s, you'd hear all these stories, and people hated us. Valerie, the local community, senior living companies resented us people were talking bad about us in town. They were calling us body brokers and bounty hunters.
Oh
There was
gosh.
an article in the Phoenix Magazine, which is one of our local, and they highlight lifestyle and trends in the city and restaurants and food. But there was a big story about these nefarious body brokers that were hanging out at the hospital, and they were taking seniors, unknowing families, vulnerable people, and selling them to the highest bidder. And it was true. It was true. There was a whole network of senior living homes that were largely owned by immigrant folks that settled here in Phoenix.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of phenomenal homeowners. I don't want to say they're all bad, but there's a network of those that would pay more to get the business, that would do things that we would say would be sketchy and unethical. And so as we started to organize as an industry a few years later, I would say, hey, our reputation was highly, we earned it. We earned it. People were
Yeah.
upset with what we represented. So I never took off on a road, years ago to go in to get in all the things I've gotten into. But I guess,
Happened.
I was raised in a way that tell the truth, be straight with people, do what you say. If we just do what you said you were going to do, that would be good. And that's how I've tried to make it.
I can relate to that at some point when all these stories are things that, as you said, things happen because they've happened to you and
Mhm.
how you can get into things. So my dad was in um, a home where he had to go after he was released from the hospital. And there was a lady sitting outside on the bench. And we came out. She said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "We had to move my dad." "Oh," she says, "I remember you from church. I can help you. Here's my card. And, where can I take you?" And she was there
Mhm.
ready to take us to find the next place. And
Mhm.
we had never seen her before. She didn't remember us from church.
Mhm.
And so unfortunately for her or for us, we decided that wasn't the kind of person that we wanted to work with. Well,
Yeah.
how do you keep these values in front of the mind of your team? It's always a
Oh,
challenge, How do you make sure
it,
team members share your values?
yeah. And I'll tell you, it's been a challenge. I've had a number of people come through my team, and I've been successful at helping them start their own business. And I've got six competitive businesses in Phoenix. People that used to work under our umbrella have gone out and done their own thing. Um, and some of them were with me for years, and some didn't want to play by the rules. Um, Especially after 2010, you mentioned we started that pastors group, the PASRS. I was asked to start a group to establish a professional code of ethics and best practices. You can't then tell the world you stand for this and then go about your business over here no matter what and do
Right.
all this behind the shady stuff. I couldn't do it. I've had some people that wanted to do some shady kinds of things. I've had people that didn't align with my spiritual values, and not that they have to, but it's my company and I wanted to do things a certain way under a certain, motive, and people were challenged by that. But I think one of the coolest experiences, if I get choked up, and I get a little emotional at times, and my kids go, "Oh, Dad, you're always so soppy." Well, it is what it is. And um, when I got remarried 10 years ago, I could never have foreseen what's happening now. My three kids didn't want anything to do with the business, and I was thinking one day I would have to find some sort of legacy plan or walk away from it.
Right.
Um, I've always taken all of my kids out to the baseball games as a date with Dad, because that's where my heart goes, is baseball, and it's a place that we could talk.
Right.
And
That's
so
correct.
my youngest, um, Leah, um, who is my stepdaughter, but I consider my three stepkids my kiddos. Um, Leah and I have had a rough road putting a family together. When I was blending my family with Stacy's family, we had, as many families do, there's a process to it. And Leah and I had some bumpy process. And we've really come to a place where we love and admire each other. And she says to me on the way into the ballpark, she says, "Can I ask you something? I went to school and it didn't really work out for me at Arizona State. And I don't really, I think after all these years I've watched you and Mom, I want to join the business.
That's
Would you consider?" And you just don't know how rich that felt in that moment.
absolutely.
And I'm feeling it again right now. You know, I knew I would if I told you this. And um for her to be the one, she's the youngest. And so the very same stuff we're covering in boot camp, I'm teaching my kids. Her older sister, then, who is a school teacher here in Phoenix,
Mm.
is pretty much fed up with public school system, and she's a
Yeah.
special ed teacher. And she said to me, "It's time I want to come too."
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I now don't have a choice. Before with like people in my world, it was like we do things the way I taught, and I tried to teach and be a model for in my community and all that with the pastors, and then later the NPRA. But now I have to live it and be authentic to my kids every day too. And
But
there's
how
no
sad. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, and there's no getting around it. It's like this is how it's got to be. We're going to do this the right way, and the kids are learning what's right. And I've been showing them examples of when things get jinky out there, and um, when there's unethical things. I'm using it as a learning experience for Leah now. Molly will join us in June.
But I can't help but think how sad it is that the education system doesn't provide an opportunity for your daughter, because certainly special ed kids need care,
Mm,
and expertise, and love, and passion, and all of those things.
yeah, they're losing a good one, and she's got a heart of gold.
Yeah,
And yet because the system is
yeah,
broken now, she wants
yeah.
to have a business of her own with us. Yeah.
Let's talk about, and this is going to open up a big discussion, but we'll save time hopefully for some stories at the end. So what do families need to know, Scott,
Mm,
about the ethical challenges in senior placement? This is a big question, and how can they protect their loved ones?
yeah, that's a great question. So when the model was set up, this is I think the root of it is in this answer. When the model was set up, we positioned ourselves as a group of people that offered a free service. We got paid by a relationship with senior living homes, senior living providers that paid us a commission. That commission was usually some percentage or 100% of the first month's rent or more. And in some cases on those bidding wars, more. And so since we don't really work for the family and we work for who writes the checks, and they're loosely governed, especially the small homes, there was a lot of problems with the model. And I point this out in our discussions in that training, because the model lends itself to invite agents without a value-based foundation to do some things. So here's a couple of them. One of them was, we call it churning. Churning is when I work with a family, place them in a home, and maybe 2 or 3 or 4 months later, after staying close to the family and following up with all the right questions, I bring it to the attention of the family that there's another home that does things just a bit better, or they got better food, or now they've got an opening. And if they would have had one 3 months ago when we were looking for your dad, we would have gone there. But let's go look at that. And now I've stimulated a second move. And when agents do that intentionally, time and time again, and I'm telling you that happens, you'll see the same, especially if there's a family member that's out of state, that's not really paying close attention, or there's kind of a detached situation. These are vulnerable for these kinds
Right.
of churning activities. Um, Guys like me are not permitted. Um, well, let me say it this way. I'll go the other direction. If you work for a healthcare system, like when I worked for the home health agency, I am not
Mhm.
permitted to receive a fee for any work that I do outside of my job. I can't take a referral fee. I can't be paid for. And so, hospital social workers, discharge planners at skilled nursing facilities, nurses, social workers, people like that, there's a federal law that prohibits them accepting those fees. Well, nothing is prohibited for me for offering it. So you get guys like me going up to the hospital and offering substantial incentives, Louis Vuitton, gift cards, cash,
My goodness.
to discharge planners and people that are potentially corruptible, and that guides business to these people when otherwise they wouldn't have been able to get that referral directly to themselves. And then you go out and place somebody in these assisted living homes, and you're making $2, 3, 4, $5,000 a pop, which leaving 500 behind for the discharge planner. There's these model issues that lends itself to people who, if they don't have a foundation or an ethics value base to them, that and so families don't know that. And they don't
No,
know
they don't.
when the hospital social worker tells you, you need to talk to this person, they'll help you get placed. All the hospital social worker is really concerned about, whether they're on the take or not, that's not my point. All they know is that the person that they're giving you can get them out of here really fast, because the hospital social worker is on this constant rat wheel trying to get people in and
Right.
out of
They
the
need to
hospital.
free up that bed for somebody
They
else.
got to free it up. So, um, if they find a placement specialist who does it super fast, um, well, families should ask the question and go, okay, that's cool, but why? What I want the families to know is there's a national organization that establishes best practices. Is that agent you're giving me part of that National Placement Referral Alliance group? Does that agent have liability insurance? Is that agent fingerprinted or background checked? Is that there are things about us that, as part of our association with our trade group, I have voluntarily submitted myself to those practices which protect families and that we can answer for. Um, and the answer is probably not. There's a lot more people not part of the association than are in the association.
Is that
And
right?
oh yeah, I would guess in Phoenix maybe there's several hundred placement agents, and there's probably 50 to 80 agents in our local association group here in Phoenix now.
Yeah, that's pretty
So
amazing.
it's crazy the number of people that are not a part of it. So we're just making a dent in it by getting people under the umbrella and volunteering. Valerie, even just one more thing here in Phoenix, and it's not this way in California. Thankfully, California has its own regulation, and requires the small homes, those 5-bed homes, to
Mhm.
carry liability insurance to cover in case there's an issue with care. In Arizona, I don't have to carry liability insurance, of course, because it's not a state requirement, and the homes are not required to carry liability insurance. So,
Wow.
so families have no recourse if something happens and goes bad. Everybody gets paid, but
Nobody has
fam,
any liability.
nobody has any liability, and the family,
Accountability.
nobody has any
Yeah.
recourse. Yeah, it's crazy.
So let's just clarify here for our listening and viewing audience that you are a person who takes a senior or a loved one of a senior or whatever and helps them find their next place to live. It could
Correct.
be that they're perfectly well and they just want to choose an assisted living community. And
Mhm.
so you help them with that because you know all of these. You're kind of like
Yep.
a real estate broker in that you know your product, you know the
Yep.
communities, you know what they offer, you know the amenities. And
Exactly.
if they are just coming out of a hospital and they need to go to um a skilled nursing because they need to have what we would refer to as rehab,
Hmm.
right? For a few weeks, you can
Yep.
help them find one of those.
Yep. Yep.
And if they need to be in a care community and they need something more like what I call a group home where my dad was, there's 5 bedrooms,
Hmm.
5 people there, and they've got full-time staff that cooks for them and takes care of them. And then you can help people with that also, right?
Right. Absolutely. All
All
of
of
that.
these are things,
All of
right?
that. Yep. All of
So they
that.
don't have to be sick.
Yep.
These are just, and the reason you are so good at it, not only because you're ethical, but also because you make it your business similar to a real estate agent, insurance or whatever,
Right.
to know your product, correct?
That all day long. Leah's already like, okay. I know we don't have anything to do tomorrow. I'm going out and looking at some homes today because I want us to be constantly up to date, seeing new places, seeing places we haven't seen in a while, revisiting those homes so that we feel confident when a family needs us, we have a solution. We're current with them. We know the environment. My mom lives in one of those small homes, just like your dad did. She lives there now. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think it's important to talk about that there are so many, everybody is different. And just like trying to decide what home you want to buy. A
Hmm.
home has a big driveway, a small driveway, a big living room, a small kitchen, whatever. And these are all so different, and our loved ones, and as seniors, we're different also. So you're a matchmaker, correct?
That's perfectly it. So when we sit down and we get invited in to meet a prospective resident to an assisted living or someone who needs to make this move or their family, we do a pretty and thorough inside discussion about all the things that are going on and try to create some depth of understanding of what someone would hope for their future. Um, with so many choices in senior living, it is not a cookie cutter deal. We are not order takers. We're not filling out just a checkbox on a form and then sending it out to 20 places. There's services like that, but that's far away from what we do. We really want to hear from the senior themselves if possible, and certainly their family, and then take that. And then each of these homes, facility centers has its own environment, its own personality. A lot of the small residential homes has the personality of the four other residents that are there. So if you bring somebody in that doesn't match the other four, that's a terrible match, right? If you they have the I use this gal over on the west side of town. I love her dearly. I've known her for almost 20 years. She runs a home called Mom's Place. And so she only cares for ladies. She'll never take a man. Every afternoon, the ladies, she calls them her ladies get tea. Every
Oh,
day they get cookies. I'm not kidding you. They make
oh,
cookies. She puts it pretty for them and they all have little it's a ritual. Every woman in there has their nails done if they want. They
oh my
got
goodness.
makeup and their hair done every day. She is that is what they do. She has a big styling chair and the girls that live there love to be pampered.
Yes, I can understand why.
And if I see a woman, that I go, I got to call Marianne and see if she's got a bed. Like she's always on the top of my list. If I see a woman that is yearning for that sort of loving, affectionate attention, Marianne is that girl. Most sophisticated caregiver, no. Super complex medical stuff, maybe not. But if it's just middle of the road and you want your mom loved, yeah, there's Mariana's place.
I was at a community here, an assisted living community here near our office in Tustin, California. And I walked in there yesterday and there was that a pianist was playing Broadway and
Mm,
old American songbook kind of things.
yeah.
And everybody was sitting there, and they're at 100% capacity, by the way, in that place, which is pretty
Hmm.
special. So
Yep.
I've got to be offering something if they're 100% booked.
Mhm.
Everybody was singing, and every place doesn't have that service, right? They don't bring in a pianist once a week. So if you like something like that, oh, my mom would love this.
Yeah, and when and in that assessment process, we're sitting there. I usually come, hey, there's two roads that we could go down. There's the road of the corporate senior living community where it's like a big cruise ship or a big hotel where you go to a dining room restaurant and you get waited on and they've got a bus that takes you places. They have outings, they have stuff going on inside the building, and you look at your activities page every day and you got six things to choose from every day. Now, some people would choose for various reasons to go to a smaller, more intimate, hands-on care home, like my mom's in or what your dad was in. And so we make that we educate the family on the choices and the variations, and then we literally, after we do our intake, we call it our homework, or I call it homework, but I go through the matching phase of this where we start looking at our senior living providers that are in our inventory, the ones that we're contracted with, and we connect that family to the handful of places that would be the best candidates. And I kind of narrowed it down to 3 or 4 in most cases. We set up tours, we go with them, we help them ask all the right questions, I point things out. Um,
So you
you
don't
know,
just give them a list and say, here, go look at these.
no, 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 no. And there's a lot of times you want to schedule their tour at the time that the activities are happening, so they can see some people, they can see a
Yeah,
sample of what's going on. You want to go through at dinner time or lunchtime sometimes, because wouldn't you want to know what you're going to eat?
sure,
and
absolutely.
are people just sitting there sullen, just moping the way through dinner, or is there energy and life happening at the mealtime? That's what you want people to see. And so, anyways, that's how we
As
try to
if I
customize that for families. Yeah.
a couple of questions. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that families have about finding the right senior living options?
Mm. Most people are driven initially to find something close, and
Okay.
so location tends to be their number one priority going into the situation. Um, if mom has, in the assessment phase, we identify a handful of special needs, interests, things that I think would be better supported by something 8 miles away instead of 4 miles away. Can I help the family overcome the distance of 4 miles and go look over here? And so sometimes it's that idea that we need to find something super close, when the reality is they're only seeing their maybe dad once a week now as it is. So why does it matter if it's another 10 minutes from where we're going? So sometimes it's something like that. Many people still carry around the perception that senior living looks like an old school institutional nursing home where everybody's got their blankets over their knees, they're in their wheelchair, and you go, people would voluntarily go into a senior. You should go into some. You're blown away by the lifestyle and the activities and the life that are inside a lot of our senior communities. And so they have this perception that it's just people go there to die, Valerie. And
Mhm.
so they're holding out for their life may be horrible at home, their quality of life, but they're hanging on to home for
Yes, they do. Yeah.
and
But some people
it
call them resorts. It's kind of like cruise ships. You go on the silver lining cruise ship, or do you go on the Carnival or whatever? It's a little bit more basic.
I
But in both of them, you can have a good time.
yeah. I even laugh now that even the Jimmy Buffett people have their own senior living place in Florida, Margaritaville.
They do. They do.
Yeah, they're
That's
in the
true.
business of aging. So that's really it. That people go to live still and can live and not just go be put out in one of them places and feel like they're being put out for
Yeah,
the
we don't
end.
call them nursing homes and we don't call them old people homes
Mm-mm.
anymore.
No, no,
And it's interesting because with my dad, when we put him in this place. Now, my dad, he was 98. He was almost 99.
Mhm.
99 the day after he died, he was 99. Or he was almost 99 when he died, I guess, a better way to put it. Anyway, and I laugh now, but I said to the director, do not treat him like an old man. I don't want to come in here and see him in the corner in a rocking chair with a bib on slobbering. I said, you treat him like a human being, right? He is not an old man. And I know
Yeah.
they were just laughing like, sure, lady, he's 99 years old. But that's how I felt. I didn't want him to be put in a corner in a rocking chair.
You make me think of my grandmother. I remember I was the oldest grandson, and my mom's mom had lived a hard life. She was a German immigrant kid. She moved here in the late 20s, you know. So in the late 60s, early 70s, I'm 6, I'm 9, I'm 7. My grandma was probably only in her 50s, and she acted like she was 100.
Yeah. But they were
And
older then.
well, she certainly had more advanced stuff, and we don't have the medicine, and we didn't have what we have now. And
That's true.
so my grandma had, and I think my mom learned a lot from her. I mean, she kind of reminds me of my grandmother and my great grandmother quite a bit now. But my mom has outlived both of them. Both of her grandmother and her mom. She's outlived them now.
You meet Scott families in some of their most vulnerable and emotional moments of their lives.
Mhm.
I know we both have been through this, and you see it every day.
Yeah.
When they realize that their loved one can no longer live independently, it breaks their heart, and it breaks their hearts to have to tell their loved one, you have to move.
Yeah.
So how do you guide them through these emotional processes and these emotional challenges?
Um, I think for a while, Valerie, I was a little reticent to step in and speak when I probably should have spoke earlier in my career. I should have had a courage to say, "Hey, can I be honest with you here? This is the time that we've got to, with courage, make a tough decision on mom's behalf." Um, the kids have made promises. We've made agreements with our family, our parents, that we would never put them in one of those places, or spouses have done it to each other. And when it's between the spouses, start with those guys. Um, I can't imagine sleeping next to somebody for 60 years of my life, and all of a sudden one day they're not there, and I chose to send them off. That the loneliness, the anxiety, the fear, the sadness. I went through a terrible divorce a number of years ago, and I would never wish that on anybody. And it gave me an awareness that the seniors I was talking to, I needed to be more sensitive to about moving away, because I couldn't sleep for over 6 weeks. I was married for and with this gal 25 years, and when she was gone abruptly, um, it was
You were lost,
it
yeah.
I was lost. I was ripped. And so I can't imagine losing my partner after 60 years and then choosing to place them. So you can see why men don't want their wives to go to the memory care center, or the wives that they go to all kinds of lengths to keep taking care of their husbands. You can see why they do that, and to have a tough discussion, or have the kids have the discussion with the mom that it's time to let dad go. This is hard. When it comes to parents, um, of us, the adult kids, um, I took a chance with a gentleman just a couple months ago. I'll tell you about, and he's a Phoenix fireman. What you know about firemen? They're rescuers. They're heroes. They cut. I mean, they save the day every day. That's what they do. And so when his mom was having some issues around her dementia, he wasn't quite aware of how significant it was. She lives out of town, about 3 hours in a city up kind of northwest of Phoenix. And I guess she was having some issues with her air conditioner, and it was hot, and her AC was out for the summer. And I mean, that's horrible in Arizona, right? It's 100 degrees here. Well, he didn't realize how bad things had gotten with her until he got up there and saw the condition of her apartment, or her home, and her air conditioning unit. Brought her to Phoenix, and he underestimated, but he decided, right? This is what guys like him do. He decided that he was gonna bring mom home, and he's gonna build a home for her on his property and take care of her. Well, it was so contentious at home, that his wife was ready to leave him after 20 years. His kids were crazy mad at him because grandma was taking up and doing all these weird things. She almost lit his house on fire. You could imagine that the worst thing that a fireman could have happen, that his own house burns down. His mom lit his drapes on fire with the
I don't
with
mean
the
to laugh.
with the iron. She's ironing the drapes, gets distracted, leaves the iron on the drape on the ironing board, and so it's nearly lights his house on fire. His wife is losing her mind, and he's trying to power up, and he can get through this. And I said, and I'll just call him Roy. I go, Roy, Alzheimer's is undefeated. You can't win. And he just looked at me like, what? And I said, you can't win. We have to do something different. We have to get to a place of acceptance that we can choose a different course. And he just cried. We both cried. No, I just met this guy, but yeah, but I had to have the courage to tell him, here's the, can I tell you the truth? Can I'm going to ask permission. Can I speak to this? And he let me speak, and it was what needed to happen to pop the bubble so that he could go, okay,
Yeah.
all right, let me reconstitute, and I need to now think about what other choices I have besides trying to manage dementia, which just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
On the flip side, can you tell us a story about a family whose life you've changed because they did find the right senior living arrangement?
Oh
Someone who
man.
you helped made a huge difference?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. I guess I was in business maybe 5 or 8 years, and I met this husband and wife, and I helped him with his stepdad at first, and it went really well. And then I helped her with her dad, and then I helped her with her mother once, twice, 3 times. Then it was his stepmom, and then another extended relative. I must have helped 8. I just had them on speed. Like they just called me like we were old buddies. And they just had, and it was always like they were always in the middle of it with all of their family. And I was just so torn that they were trying to enter in their own middle age of life and enjoy their grandkids and live life, and all they were doing was putting out fires for their aging, the constellation of, both of their parents had been remarried, so there was steps and extras, and oh my gosh, I probably helped them 7 or 8 times over the course of like 9 years or something. And I just love that family. They were so kind to me. Um, and we just worked through all kinds of issues. Each of them had a different story. They all needed different solution. And she knew I was going to take my time. Um, Doug and Lori were their names, and they were, I don't know. We had about a 9 or 10 year thing where we were always in each other's world.
It was how
We were
great,
talking.
and how great that they trusted you so much
Yeah,
with their
yeah,
family needs,
yeah,
that they were willing to do that.
yeah.
A question. So the senior industry, the placement industry is
Hmm.
relatively unregulated. So
Hmm.
what are some of the biggest risks that families face working with the wrong person? Why should they work with you? Because after all, once they're in there, it doesn't matter. You're not in their life anymore anyway, right?
Right, right.
So why should they work with you?
Well, I think it comes down to, um, first of all, where'd you come from? What have you been doing? Where's your professional associations aligned? I was very early involved in the advocacy for an industry. In Phoenix, our trade association, it didn't exist anywhere. And so in 2010, we organized. In 2017, I was asked to take the concept of what we were doing here in Phoenix and take it nationally. And I met people, when I started to connect to people in Orange County, and I know a lot of phenomenal people just like do the work that I do there, and up in Sacramento and down in San Diego and over in Denver and down in Dallas. And um, I think that speaks to when someone is involved and voluntarily adheres to a set of best practices that they don't have to, and they're willing to put that on the table and tell families, I belong to this. This is my story. We're going to do this process with you. This is not just matchmaker. This isn't McDonald's taking your order and giving you what you want. We really want to come alongside you and walk you through it. I hope that feels reassuring to families that they've got an ally. Um, I know personally, as from my own personal experience, how exhausting and emotional this journey is as an adult son, trying to help and love my mom when there's days that you just go, I've checked it out. Where are my brothers at?
Oh,
And
I listen, I get it. I get
yeah.
it.
And
I
so
get it.
when families call me and they start telling me their story, I very early I said, "Can I share something with you? I just want you to know I'm living it with you. I'm living it with you. I'm walking this journey with my mom and my in-laws, and I have that helps them understand. I have a connection to what, I think and just as a general thing in life, when we know that people have been through what we might be currently going through, uh, you know, that's the whole premise of like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's one alcoholic helping another, one addict helping another addict. I think when those of us adult kids are feeling the pain of it, it makes us sensitive and compassionate to the next person. And so I have a high degree of empathy for people, because I know how exhausting and how challenging it is. And it's not to say I don't love my mom. It doesn't see it just, but it
No.
means that the journey's rough.
Yep. Well, and not only that, you see so many families that you have empathy for more because you help other families with more seniors needing care than ever before. And we
Mhm.
know that. So we know that 11,000 people a day plus are turning 65. In 5 years, there will be more people over 65 in our society than there are under 18. So are we prepared as a society? And what challenges should we be addressing right now?
Yeah, we're really not. And first of all, my kids didn't have kids. Like where my parents came from larger families, and I had 3 brothers. My kids, out of my 3 children, I have 2 grandchildren. So you're right, we're tapering one side. Also, kids of my kids are not going into the helping professions. They're not going into caregiving. And so largely our caregiver pool is made up from people who English is their second language. They've come to the country. Um, and there is a shortage. And since the pandemic, that was really magnified and amplified, that there's a real challenge. And with the number of people coming, we are going to really run into issues with the number of caregivers. And we're going to have to rethink how we offer care. Care is incredibly expensive. When you have an in-home caregiver through a private duty agency, you could be paying 35 to 45 bucks an hour. I've got a client right now that's been paying $28,000 a month to have a one-on-one caregiver. Most people don't have that kind of resources. So you're talking about a massive expense train that's here and will continue to pick up momentum. The older the older we get as a nation, as a community, just like I mean, Phoenix is old and we're getting older. We already have over 100,000 80-year-olds that live here, 100,000 just in my town. And there's a million people almost 65 years. So what's it going to look like in 10 years? It's going to be
Yep.
really heavy. We're going to have to rely more on technology. You and I were talking earlier today about technology solutions that are emerging. That's really cool. I think AI plays a lot into that. And I think you're going to see a lot of that on the horizon, because if you can have technology not replace, but supplement care, that will be an ideal solution for a lot of people for a time being, and allow people to stay safely at home as long as they can, or stay in assisted living longer without maybe having to move to higher levels of care. So,
And even make care more accessible, actually. You wouldn't think that AI would do that, but it's going to.
it's going to. Oh, absolutely. And I think we're just, it's a little freaky sometimes to think that all of the cartoons with the Jetsons that we were watching, 60, 55 years ago are really coming to true. But here they are. We're talking on our wristwatches, and we're doing these kinds of meetings, and we're in each other's lives, and we're doing it virtually like this. So it's just the evolution, and we're going to have to lean into that more and more, and become more accepting of it. And I think we will. We know how it's going.
Scott, this has been an incredible time together. Unfortunately, our time is almost up, but we could do this again. I have more questions and stories I'd love to ask you about. And I really would like to go more in depth on the different things that you do in your intake, because I think it's important that if people are just talking to someone who doesn't go through all of those steps with them, they don't really know what they're missing out in choosing the right professional. But it's been a great conversation. We're going to have all of your contact information right here. Your compassion, your dedication is certainly inspiring. And now we know where to find insider knowledge, what to look for, what to avoid, and most importantly, how to make the right choices with confidence and peace of mind. Scott's company is Options for Senior Living. He's a trusted resource, helps families in Arizona, but he has resources like us and other companies, other professionals that he works with throughout the United States. After all, he's formed the NPRA. He is the guy to go to. He's the expert in the United States. So we want to thank you again. We want to invite everyone to come back to our show next Monday at 3:00, Always Ageless, where we share tips and tricks and ideas of how to help you grow bolder, certainly not older. Thank you, Scott, for being with us. And please come back again.
Will do. Love to.
Thank you.
Thank you much.